What's up, guys? What's up, guys? Oh man, I got the audio coming. Oh man, I got the audio. Give me 1 sec. I'm just setting up right now. Give me 1 sec. I'm just setting up right now. Setting up the thumbnail. Setting up the thumbnail and stuff. And YouTube. If you don't see me doing anything over here, it's because I'm looking at the other screen. I'm looking at the other screen as I'm setting it up. Just giving some time for people to come in. Oh. Good. Oh man, I literally just uploaded the title of the video on YouTube, and I didn't want to name the virus because I don't know, people's been saying you shouldn't be doing that or they demonetize your video or whatever. And literally, as soon as I change the title to not mention that on YouTube, I get a message that say I cannot monetize mentions and uses of COVID-19. Maybe I'll actually use it. Talking about COVID-19. And developers. All right, cool. Oh, where do we go? Being live. See, I'm finally logging in. You guys can start a comment. I see that there's a few of you watching. Right. All right, yeah, if you're watching, please comment. I want to make sure that they show on the screen. Or comment on the chat before I start this adventure. And I need to crap. Copy this title. JavaScript developer. All right. So I'm guessing you guys really don't want to comment. So I'm gonna comment on my own video to try it. And then I guess I'm gonna start with the topic since there's like 5 people watching now. All right, so testing chat. Yep, and it does work. Nice. All right, so basically, um, I was more than anything kind of looking for an excuse to go live, um, because I'm kind of setting everything up. So before I start, like for real, I kind of want to do a couple of videos and see how the whole thing works. It seems like right now everything is working fine. We're live on Twitch and we're live on YouTube, and there's people watching in both, so that's cool. All right. Yeah, but basically, with everything that's going on, as you probably have heard that phrase 700 million times already in the past month, um, there's been a lot of changes, obviously, for a lot of people, for us developers. The change hasn't been too drastic. At the end of the day, we're still sitting on our computer and we're still just writing code. The only thing that really it's different now is that now we've been doing it from home. At least at my company, and I think most other companies, since the beginning of March, we've pretty much been working from home. Maybe not the beginning, like I think my last day at like the office was maybe like March 10th, and then ever since then, just working from home. So it's been over a month now, um, and that sounds cool and all, but um, there is actually some challenges to that. Um, yeah, and basically, I realized that since I am not perfect, like none of you guys hopefully expect me to be, I kind of been struggling with that, um, with the with all the changes when it comes to like my job, like performing, basically performing for my job. Um, there's been a lot of distractions. There's been a lot of you know a lot of distractions, a lot of changes, and just kind of getting adapted to that. It hasn't been as easy. Now it hasn't been too bad, like, but there has been some challenges, and some of the challenges are, at least for me, when it comes to work and being a developer, it's kind of like what you expect, like the structure part of it. I being used to like coding from my house, and I work on my own business, and obviously I don't do that at the office. I do that from my house. So, I'm used to kind of like sitting in front of the computer at my house for hours and writing code, obviously. So that's not a problem. What it's kind of becoming a problem is kind of like doing it for too long and for work, where you kind of have to be where I have to kind of be a little more. I'm doing work and not doing like my own stuff, which is a little more fun, I would probably say. Um, so the fact that it's work, and the fact that it's now at home, and the fact that basically working on my business and working for my job now happening in the same room, um, it has brought a lot of challenges, because pretty much it feels like the day is like so much longer, because I'm like in the same room for like, I don't know, 8 plus 4, like 12 hours a day in the same room, and that's not even including like lunch or whatever. um, and he just kind of gets old. Like he gets old. Like I feel like it's a lot easier to do the same amount of work on both things and do a 12-hour day if at least there's like the one break in the between the two, and it feels like I'm doing different things. Like maybe 4 or 3 hours I'm working at my house, and then like 8 hours on my job, or 7 hours and a half, or whatever. And I don't know, just like that, like it doesn't feel like I'm stuck in the same room, like by myself for so long. um, so that's gonna be one of the challenges. The days just feel super long, but at the same time, they feel super short. It's weird to explain, but it's kind of like, well, while I'm working again, it feels super long because I'm like in the same exact room in the same chair for like 12 hours. If I work on both my business and my job. And even if I only do my job, it's still like 8 hours in the same exact room. So we kind of get we without talking to other people and stuff. So it kind of gets old. Um, so it feels long because of that. But then it also feels short because by the time I'm done working, it's like, oh, I took a breath and now it's time to go to bed to wake up tomorrow. So it's like it feels super short in that respect. It feels like there's time for nothing else. And it doesn't feel like it feels short also because it doesn't feel like I accomplish a lot, because in a regular day, like I wake up, I work on my business, then I go in and I run around the block, then I come back, then I shower, then I get ready, and then I go to the office, then I come back from the office. um, and that's not even included that when I'm at the office, like during lunch, I go out and I get lunch and things like that, and then drive back, like the whole commute. So it's like all these activities that are kind of like a minimum set of activities in one day, in like all the moving around, the working here, running around, driving, commuting, going out to lunch, all that stuff. Like, I don't know, by the end of the day, it kind of feels like, like it was a pretty long day. It just feels like you did a lot of stuff because all the moving around and stuff. But when you're in the same room, you kind of don't have that. So even if the day feels super long while I'm working, like by the time I get off, it's almost time to go to bed. And when it's almost time to go to bed, I'm thinking like it doesn't even feel like I did anything because I didn't do all those like activities that you regularly do during the day. So yeah, that's kind of one of the challenges. And then the main challenge, and kind of like what I'm gonna address here, because there's other things, it's kind of like they're kind of like challenges or whatever, but it's not like I don't know, it's not as serious. Like, the days feel short, okay, so what? Like, that's not gonna, like, the war is not gonna end because the days feel a lot shorter for me. But what is actually kind of more important, and that I want to make sure I address, is basically having, how do I say this? So as a developer, there's a lot you have to write code, and if you are a developer, you probably already know this. I'm kind of talking for everybody, so the new people, the aspiring developers in my channel, can also understand. But as a developer, you have to write code, obviously, right? Like, that's what you're getting paid to do. They tell you, like, we need our application to now do this and that, and then you go and you make the application do this and that. Like, that's part of it, right? But then, so let me just write it here. So I have like writing code, right? So that's like the number one job. Then you also have things like, actually, I'm not gonna make it a number list. So that's kind of like the number one job. Then you have other things like reviewing people's code. Right? So other people at the company, they write code, and again, this is something that might be obvious if you're a developer already, but if you're new, you can just write code and just ship it online. Like, I mean, there are companies that still do that, but that's not like best practice. So every time you write a piece of code before it goes live and all of the users can see it or whatever, like somebody has to at least like go over the code a little bit and make sure that you didn't like totally mess up something big or something like that. And I mean, that process is super important because it's never like, it's not like a thing where they're like inspecting your code and then once in a while like they find something that you may have missed. It feels like there's always at least that one little thing that you may have missed, and even if it wouldn't like be a bug, like maybe it wasn't like a best practice or something like that, and it would have led to like confusing code and things like that. So it's super important because there's always something that you have to fix. There's always something that when somebody looks at it from their perspective, they can tell you like, hey, what if you do it this way? And it turns out that a lot of times the way that they tell you, usually because they wouldn't tell you otherwise, is a way that's a lot faster or that's a lot easier to understand. So there's always those things that you gotta go back and fix. So reviewing code is a big part of the job. So what else? Then you also have meetings. And then, you have the meetings like company meetings, developers only meetings. What else? Well, and inside of this, you have like different types. So, for example, you have like tech retro, which tech retro is pretty much like where the developers get together and they talk about how to write better code. Let me know, guys, if the keyboard is too loud and it's annoying, so that I can fix that. What's up, Calvin? Yeah. But yeah, so you have meetings, you have tech retro, then you have like sprint planning, which is pretty much the meetings in which you kind of look at the work that's coming up, and then you kind of make estimations about how long you think it's gonna take. Um, so and others. So anyways, the thing is that you have other meetings. Then what else do you need to be doing? Then you also need to be on support, especially especially at my companies. It's a it's a startup, it's a small company that I work for. So for support, at the end of the day, it's kind of like all of us are on support in a way. No, we don't have like a lot of like big problems that like make us like have to stop what we're doing on a Saturday night to hurry up and fix it. But sometimes they do happen, and usually, a rule of thumb pretty much right now is like whoever wrote the code or whoever was messing around the code, the that caused the issue, like that person goes and fix it. So it's like at all times you gotta be ready to go and fix something. uh, so on support, fix bugs. um yeah, so I'm gonna kind of divide this into two. So fix bugs and monitor the app. Shit. All right. So those are things you gotta do. Now, if there's like an intern or something, then you gotta kind of teach other people, or I don't even know if teach is a good way. It's kind of like let's just say pair with. I'm just gonna say teach for lack of a better word, but it's not like you're teaching people what to do. It's just kind of like if you have a little more experience, you might have some insights on how they can do things better. Um, I'm just gonna say work with interns. All right. So you have, and there's probably more things that I'm missing. So as a developer, you have all these things that you're kind of doing at the same exact time at all times. Um, the problem with me, though, and why like this COVID-19 situation working from home has been a little bit of an issue for me, has been because I'm kind of more of the person that just kind of wants to go in the office, sit down, um, and just kind of start coding and just trying to get the thing done. So if whatever I'm working on, like my story, which is kind of like the main thing that you're working on at a time. So if my story is make the app do A and stop the app from doing B, right? Like that's like my story. That's like what I should be working on mainly, right? But then, even if writing code is only for this, I still gotta be doing all of these things and maybe more, maybe other things besides this that I'm not even that I can think of right now. But you got all of these things. I'm always kind of like in here in writing code, and um, I kind of neglect all of this, to be honest. And I guess I didn't notice before because, or well, I kind of noticed that. I kind of like always knew that, but it wasn't as big of a deal. Kind of like until now that I'm like, working from home, because at the office it's kind of like, even though I knew I was responsible like for all of this. Um, I guess I'm kind of getting lazy or used to just trying to do this, and then kind of like doing this once in a while when I kind of when I thought about it, you know. So doing this like when I was like done writing a story or something. So then before picking something else, you know, when I was done doing this part, then I would go for like 5 seconds and try to do like all of this. But by all, I mean like only the ones that I kind of remember at the time. You know, so I might remember like, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to review some code, and um, so I would just kind of do it like whenever I remember pretty much to do the other things, but my mind was always it's always kind of like in this mode, just kind of like writing code. So um, it wasn't a big problem because I have other people on the office that I guess they pay more attention to the other stuff than just getting the stuff done, which is a good thing. So sometimes, especially my manager, would kind of tell me like, because my manager is also like my colleague. Like it's in a, we don't really have like that structure where he's like above me or, well, technically like he is because he's my manager, but at the same time, like we just work on the same team, like pretty much next to each other, doing the same job type of thing. Um, it's except that he's the manager and he's a little more he has more skills because he has more experience and things like that. um, but at the same, but like I said, like we just literally sit in the, like in our area where the developers sit, and we just worry about our thing. Like, technically he's the manager, but like, our team, we kind of call ourselves like team members. Um, but anyways, he's like a person that's super organized with everything in life. So a lot of the times, like if I would forget because I didn't have like a super specific plan, and he would tell me like, hey, remember there's a merge request, waiting for you to look at it. And then I would be like, a merge request is kind of like when somebody finished coding, and then they like they post it so people can see their code, and then if other people approve it, then that code actually goes live. Just explaining that for those of you that don't know. But anyways, he would tell me like, hey, remember there's that one thing that's still waiting on you, and then I'll be like, oh, okay, and then I'll go and look at it. And he would tell me things like, what else? Like, hey, there was a bug with the user creation flow. I remember you were messing with that like Friday or something, so you might want to look at it. And again, like he kind of reminds me because I wasn't monitoring the app, or I wasn't paying so much attention to that because I was just kind of more focused on writing code. But it's never been a problem. It's not like it's never been like a huge problem, or anything like that. Because since like we're so close to each other and we're like all cool, all kind of like around the same age and thing, it's not like, I don't know. It just feels like he doesn't feel like bothered by the fact that he has to like that sometimes he needs to tell me like, hey, remember to do this and remember to do that. But so that's kind of how it works, how it's been at the office. And yeah, I just been spending kind of all of my effort in this, and then kind of neglecting this, and then people remind me, and that's when I go and get this done. Working from home, that's being a way bigger problem, because it's not as easy to be like, hey, remember you have that merge request or whatever. It's like you have to, I don't know, it's not like super hard to do that either. Like sometimes my manager will still tell me that since we've been working from home. But even if you have to like type a message, I don't know, that's kind of like it almost becomes like something that it's like cool when you're in person to just say it. It's like no effort. But then, at least in my opinion, I feel like like it's easier for us to just kind of be communicative when we're all in the same place and talk to each other and stuff like that. But now that we're in separate places, then it's like each one of us. What did I do? Now that we're in separate places, like each one of us is responsible for making sure all of these things happens, because even though like we still talk through the internet and things like that when we're at work during the work hours, even though we're at home, we still not the same exact level of communication as we're in the office. So basically I found myself like kind of neglecting all of this a lot and only focusing on this. And an example of that, for example, is that today, so last week I pushed up a story, and I kind of finished writing my code, and I thought I was done, and I pushed it up so that my peers can review my code. And then that wasn't on Friday. That was before Friday, because last week there was a tornado and I lost power, so I wasn't even able to work. But anyways, like the last day before I lost power, I pushed up the code and I thought I was done. And so today is Monday, and then I come into work. Well, I come into this room to work from home, but I start working, and then I just start writing code on my next story, forgetting that I have another story that's right here that's like waiting to be reviewed by my peers. So I guess I should probably add one more here. Reviewing peers code, but also fixing or updating code based on on comments and suggestions by peers, right? So then this is another part that I also need to do. Like when I push code up and then my peers are in the reviewing part of their job, and then they make some comments and they tell me like, hey, we actually think it would be better if you did it this way or whatever, right? They're reviewing the code to make sure is good. Then each of us as developers, then it's our responsibility to make sure that we go back when they leave comments or suggestions during the reviewing code, and then we go and fix or update the code based on those comments or suggestions. So in the story that I was making, so again, last week before I lost power, I was working on something. I was done writing the code. I submitted it for review for my peers to review it. Then they left some comments, and I basically, when I started working today on Monday, instead of me going into like going back to see if they made some comments or something like that and see if I need to fix or update the code that I was writing last, I just kind of jumping into writing code again and kind of forgot about all of this. And then when the day is almost over and I'm thinking like I'm doing good, I'm working on something new, then my manager asked me like, he asked me about the other story, if I finished the things that needed to be done on the story that they got done reviewing and that they made comments on. And at that point I had like completely forgotten it. So again, he's not like mad or anything like that or pissed off. He's a very cool, understanding guy. But at the same time, like, like those type of things shouldn't be happening. And it's kind of been like a little bit of an adjustment that I have to make. So in order basically to get better at that and to keep it like from becoming a pattern, and what I decided to do is I'm going to have a checklist of all the things that I have to do, so that instead of me having to like remember all of these things in my head, I kind of can just look at the list, and that way I would never forget it. And then I kind of pick one time in the day or two times in the day where I kind of go each one of these things and make sure that make sure that all of these things are in a good place before I go back to writing code. I hope that makes sense and that's not too confusing. But yeah, but those are kind of some of the challenges for me at least, as a developer, and working from home because of the virus and all that stuff. And it's also kind of I don't want to say jealous, because I'm kind of grateful because at least I'm getting paid. But with everything, with a lot of people like that can work from home and that are not essential or whatever, and they're basically just chilling at home, not doing anything, like being bored. Like, I seriously cannot remember the last time I was bored in my life, because it's always like has so many things to do. But you hear all these other people like literally trying to find ways to kill the time, and us as developers, it's like, yeah, nothing's really changed when it comes to the amount of work we have to do, really. But yeah, so what I'm gonna do then is I'm maybe gonna can I make another window of notes? Shit. I wonder if I can make another window. Do you guys know Apple Notes? Anybody in the comments knows if I can make another notes window? New folder, new note, view. All right. Probably a long ass thing. I don't get this shit. Anyways, so those are kind of like the challenges. So I'm just gonna start a new note to copy those here, but then I'm just gonna actually try to start here with the checklist. So again, the whole thing is basically to make sure that I'm taking time and going through a checklist that includes all of these things, to make sure that I'm not only doing this like sometimes I do, and that I'm actually taking care of everything. Because now that I'm working from home, I can rely on my peers paying attention to everything and then just letting me know when stuff happens. Okay. So basically, at the beginning of the day, I should probably look at my pending merge request. See if they have been merged or if there are any comments. I guess I just leave it in one line. Why does he do it? All right, so that's one bullet point. What else do I need to do? Should I do it right in the morning as soon as I get in? For those of you wondering why I have sunglasses on, um, there's a big ass light right there so that you guys can actually see me. So basically, I'm trying to cover myself from that big ass light, trying to protect my eyes a little bit. Look up pending merge request, see if they have been merged or if there are any comments. Um, it's kind of like a sub step of that. If not comments or nor merge. So basically, if nobody has said anything about it, but they also haven't like approved it, I should probably say. So basically, if nobody made any comments or any suggestions about it, but they also didn't approve it, it's like, okay, like, am I cool to merge it in and deploy it or not? So basically, I need to make sure that I ask people, if I see that none of those two things happen, I need to ask if they actually just don't have any comments and I can merge it, or if they just haven't had the time to look at it before yet, and if I should just wait. I'm just saying peers. I don't know why. I feel like I never use that word. And today I'm using it like a lot of times. Oh, I think I'm just using that because it's easier to spell than colleagues. And if they have looked at it and basically if they approve of it and actually approve. Yeah, so basically if they actually approve it but they just forgot to click the approve button or whatever, or do a thumbs up or whatever, then I can just go ahead and merge it. If not, then I'll just wait. If not, wait until next checklist. So basically, after if they just haven't seen it because they haven't had the time, then I'm just gonna kind of forget about it and come back to it when the next time that I go over this checklist that I am writing. All right. Damn it. All right, so that's one thing. Look at my pending merge request, and I think that's all I need to do actually for that. Then it's what would I want to do next in the mornings before starting to work? So Ryan, how you doing, man? Um, all right, I see. It's like a few guys from the last time watching. Maybe we're building like a little crew. uh, they go way back. They go way back to the first episode that was like a week and a half ago. You guys were watching when I did wasn't even doing nothing, just trying to set up all the equipment and stuff. Yeah, man, I'm trying to kind of like find excuses to go live and get a little better with it before try to like do any like tutorials or anything like that. Um, yeah, so I kind of had to do this. Yeah, yeah, so I kind of had to do this anyway. Um, and I think this might be actually interesting for you, Ryan, because I know you're talking about like wanting to get your first job and stuff. So this might give you some insights. I'm gonna summarize it in like 10 seconds so that um, people that already heard me don't get super bored. But basically, these are like a lot of things that I'm supposed to do as a developer. And ever since working from home, I'm not doing all of these. I'm more kind of like doing this. So I'm building like a checklist, kind of like a pilot. Like an airline pilot. Like they have a checklist that they have to go through every time before they take off to make sure like they're not forgetting stuff that's important. So basically, I'm building me one of those because I keep forgetting all of this stuff and only doing this one. But all of this stuff are super important too for me to do as a developer for my company and for the other company I worked at too. So I don't know if this applies to absolutely everybody, but I would assume that this applies to the vast majority of developers out there. Um, well, I'm glad it's working for something. Yeah, man, setting all of this stuff, I was gonna say it's easy because I thought it was kind of fun, but now that I think about it, it's been a few days. I got the I got one of these things online, like to hold the microphone and stuff. Um, I know you guys can still see it, but having a lot of troubles, like figuring out where to put the camera so that the monitors, but that I can still see the monitors. The problem is that my monitors are like 232 inches, so they are literally almost as wide as me expanding my arms. They're probably like this wide. Yeah, they're probably like this wide. So the camera right here is now like right in front of one of the monitors, which kind of sucks, but we'll see. I'll figure out a better way to do it eventually. Anyways, back to the thing again. So in the beginning of the day, kind of want to look at my pending merge requests, see if they have been approved or if there are any comments. If no comments nor approved, ask peers if they look at it yet. If they have actually, approve, go ahead and merge it. If not, wait until next checklist round. Checklist round, I guess, it's just a word I'm using for the next time I go over this checklist. All right, so that's one thing. Basically, looking at the stuff that I have like almost done and see if anybody made any comments so that I can actually finish it. What else? This is what I hate the most about being a developer. Reviewing other people's code. I know. It's one of those things that's like, it's part of the job. It's part of the reason why you get paid, because it's important. It needs to get done. Yeah. So I need to find time for this in here. But let me see if I can procrastinate on it, because I don't want to start my days doing the things that I don't like. Let's see. These are any meetings, company meeting, developer only meeting, tech retro, in planning, and all that. All right, so I think what I can do next, after I go over all my merge requests and make sure that they are merged in, I think what I can do next is I can look at my calendar. And actually, this should probably be my first thing to do. I don't know. And this is the way that I use my calendar. It has not always been this way. I actually recently changed to like a new method that I'm trying out, and it seems to be working. So I'm gonna show you my calendar. Give me 1 second. Oh man, sorry. I can't show you my calendar because it has a lot of personal information. Sorry about that. But basically, what I do with my calendar is can I draw here? Nope. I have everything in my calendar basically, and then on top, as my to-do list, what I do is that I make events, like all the events, so that they show on the top of the calendar, and that way I kind of have like my calendar and my to-do list at the same time, in the same place, except that, you know, the things in the all day in the to-do list, they don't have a specific time, and then everything in the calendar obviously has a time schedule for it. So basically, I'm gonna look at my calendar and see if and basically prepare for any meetings that require preparation. So sometimes there's meetings that we have where like it's not just like going in there and listen to somebody else speak. Like sometimes there's meetings where you kind of need to be prepared. For example, like on the tech retro meeting, it's like when our team talks about basically like what we can do to get better as engineers. What things didn't go well in the past week, but things did go well. What do we need to be doing more of? How could have we avoided the bad things? All of that type of stuff. So that's just like one of the meetings for which you have to be prepared, because you need to like take some time to kind of think about what went well and what didn't go well, and then so that you can talk about it and maybe come up with solutions for that. So this is not a meeting that you can just show up. Like, I mean, it happens. Like sometimes you just show up and you're like, I don't got anything. But ideally speaking, it is better. The idea is that we think about these meetings before the time of the meeting, so that we have stuff to talk about and we can actually find solutions. Because there's no point in us going to the meeting and saying like, yeah, I didn't think about nothing. I can remember the stuff that didn't go well and the stuff that did go well last week. So yeah, I don't think there's anything to improve. And then you don't have the meeting, and then as soon as you're out of the meeting, then you encounter a problem that you've been having, and So anyways, that's just an example of a meeting that requires preparation. And then some other meetings you just kind of go and all they require is your attention. Like sprint planning, usually that's where we go, and then we get told like what's coming up. What the hell just happened? Yeah, sprint planning, we just go into that meeting, and that's when they're telling us like what's coming up, like what things do we need to build for the app, things like that. So in that meeting, you don't necessarily have to like prepare or have anything ready. You just kind of go in there and you just kind of pay attention so that you can give your estimation on how long you think things are gonna take, and blah blah blah. Again, this is just like planning the next few weeks. It depends on how your job does it. My job right now at Sprint is 2 weeks, but I have worked in the past in teams where the sprint was only 1 week and things like that. A sprint is just kind of like a chunk amount of time, and then like like a chunk of time, and then work that goes in it. All right. So anyways, I think maybe a good thing would be to like look at my calendar and then prepare for any meetings that require preparation. And then I should probably make sure to set alerts if needed. So basically, sometimes I have something in my so let's say, for example, let's use this example again, the tech retro meeting. Maybe I don't wanna. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's something like super urgent that I need to be working on, or maybe me finishing like my story that I'm working on is like super important or whatever. So I know that I need to prepare for this meeting, but instead of like dropping everything and preparing for it right now, maybe what I do when I do see it on my calendar is that I make sure that I set an alarm like 15 minutes or 10 minutes before the meeting, so that I can actually think about the stuff I need to think about and prepare for it. All right, let me read some of the comments. Let's see, Ryan Sam. I'm building an encrypted login system right now that then allows you to message other users on the app. You said I should show some of my backend skins, so I'm doing that real quick. Awesome, man. Good for you, man. Good for you. Yeah, I think that's a I think you said you don't have a job right now, so that's exactly what you should be doing, man. That's exactly what you should be doing. Especially if you're living with family and they're okay with you, like just kind of like being there for a few months without a job. This is gonna pay big. Like 8 hours that you work at a shitty place, at a McDonald's or something like that, like that's 8 hours that you pretty much never gonna get back in your life. But 8 hours that you spend like doing stuff towards learning code, um, that's 8 hours that like you always gonna get paid for it in the future. Like like they're building onto your skills. You're investing in yourself. So even though it might be zero now, like nobody's paying you money just because like, oh, you practice today. Here's money for practicing. Like that's not gonna happen. But at the end of the day, um, in the future, they're gonna be like, here, take all of this because you took all that time to practice. So it's a way better investment, I think, than to be working a shitty job if you have the opportunity to do that. Um, some of us, don't have it like that, and we have to like work to be able to survive and eat. Um, and then learn code on the side. So here's another question, Omar. What do you think about TypeScript? Is it is it worth learning to get a job? What about AWS? What do I think about TypeScript? Um, is it worth learning to get a job? I would say no. I don't know no freaking TypeScript, man. And this is what I do for a living. Been doing it for like 3 years now, for a living, and I don't know TypeScript. Like, I kind of seen it because like, a lot of React things like when you look at it is in TypeScript or whatever. Um, but yeah, man, I don't think it's like super crucial. I don't think it's one of those things that you like have to learn before you get a job. I think that's like one of those things that you have to learn and you have a reason to learn it. Like, you are at your job and they're using, and for some reason they decided they wanted to use TypeScript now or whatever, or there's code that you need to read that's in TypeScript, or yeah. What about AWS? AWS is AWS is I think it's cool. I see a lot of people hiring for it. We use it at my job, so I know that if you were like to apply at my job and you were pretty good at AWS, that would definitely be a plus. So I think that's a good thing to learn. Plus, yeah, like myself, like me myself, I'm trying to kind of like learn AWS too because even though we use it at my job, um, it's even though we use it at my job, it is um not something that's like, it works well. Let me just say that. So since it works well, like we set it up, and once we set it up, it's like we just kind of forget about it and we never mess with it almost ever again. On top of that, the person that has done most of like the infrastructure is basically my team lead and manager, um, and so since he has done most of it, and it almost never needs to be touched because it works. It doesn't need to be messed with. Um, then we don't yeah, then we don't mess with it a lot. So myself, like I'm myself trying to learn more of it, um, so that I can say I'm more skilled, and but mainly so that I can use it because um, as I'm working on my app, that's what I want to deploy all my things, and there's kind of a learning curve there. Yo, coding face in the house. What up, Joe? Yeah, he done did it again. He done did it again. Well, yeah, Joe, I was kind of just going live testing this kind of like setup that I'm working with, um, and kind of the topic I was talking about is as a developer at my company, I'm kind of responsible for doing all of these things. Um, you might be familiar with some of this. I'm responsible from working on my story, writing my code, writing my piece of code, but I'm also responsible for like reviewing other people's code, make sure that I'm going back to the code that I already wrote and seeing if anything needs to be fixed or updated based on the merge requests, comments and suggestions by my by my coworkers. Then on top of that, I have to make sure I go to these meetings and that I'm on time to all of these meetings and stuff. Some of these meetings require some preparation. For example, like for Tech Retro at my company, they want you to like think of, before you go in the meeting, to think about like everything that happened in the past 2 weeks and like what could have gone better, like what did we do wrong, like what could we do to make it better, like do we need to buy something, do we need to celebrate that something worked well and just keep doing that. So some meetings require preparation, so you cannot just show up. Then on top of that, with me working for like a small startup, kind of like all of us are always in support in a way. And it's basically kind of like if something messes up, basically the last person to be messing with the area of the code base is the person that's gonna fix it. So you also kind of have to keep an eye out for monitoring the app and fixing any bugs if there's any bugs. And then especially during the summers, then also you kind of have to like work with the interns and teach them or show them how we work and things like that. So with me working from home, I basically, since I'm not like at the office, and the communication, even though it's still good, like we still talk to each other through the internet, I kind of like being not doing all of this like I should be doing, and I only being like focused on my story. And it's kind of, I wouldn't say it is a problem, but it's like it's if I let it keep going that way, I feel like it's gonna become a problem. So basically, I'm just here like trying to make a checklist to make sure that I'm staying on top of all of these other things at several times throughout the days. Probably just in the morning, maybe in the morning and after lunch. Um, but yeah, that's kind of what the topic is. Another one. All right. So make sure to set alerts, alarms if needed, um, based on the events and maybe other things. So I'm gonna move this right here because I think maybe the first thing that I should do is look at my calendar. Um, yeah. Look at my pending merge requests, see if they have been approved. Okay, then after that, I should probably look at my daily checklist. Not checklist. Look at my daily to-do list. Basically, like if the day before I wrote like a to-do list or things that I needed to do this day, the next day or whatever. See if like which one of those things I need to do now. If not, I schedule them for later. All right, and then after that, damn it. I guess I can say, you know what? I should probably move this to the top because some of this stuff like you need to know right away. So before looking at my pending merge request, most of the day this is not gonna take any work because hopefully there isn't any bugs, but just basically taking a look to see if there is. Check on bugs. Monitor. So basically I'll do like shed logs and bugs. check for logs and possible bugs. Yeah, so that way, like, you know, I get in, I look at my calendar. Um, then right after that, I look and see if there's any bugs or anything urgent that needs to be done right now. Um, Basically, I can deal with them or make stories for them or both. All right. Then after that, I can look at my merge requests, see if they have been approved or if there are any comments. Blah blah blah. We've already been through this a million times. Look at my daily to-do list. Um, so, since I will admit I hate looking at merge requests, uh, maybe I'm just not good enough, and it takes me a while to understand other people's code sometimes. But whatever the reason, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna basically have this checklist twice, and I'm gonna do it once in the morning, and I'm gonna do it once right after lunch. Um, and they're basically gonna be almost identical, except that I'm only gonna look to other people's code, review other people's code, after, like in the afternoon. Yep, I think I'm gonna do that because even though it's like a 24-hour interval, as soon as I don't miss it within 24 hours, that's still that's still good. So yeah. All right. So I'm gonna on purpose forget this for now. Um, Work with interns is not something that you really have to check for. That just depends if you're working with them or not. So I don't need to worry about that. So then I should uh, then work on my story. If I can spell story, aka write code. Start by looking at the story checklist. So for each story, I also have a checklist. Um, yeah, it's kind of like this is kind of like my main checklist for for work. You know, for like my daily checklist of everything that I need to make sure I do every single day, and in this case, twice a day, at least. But then they have a story that's just for just for like the one story, like the one feature that I'm working on. So let me see if I can show you an example. All right, so you guys can see it right now. Let me just make sure there's nothing like super sensitive here that I shouldn't be showing. Oh, I don't have my. Yeah, I can probably show you this one. All right, so this is another notes program that I use called OneNote. I'm gonna collapse all of that. Um, and this is kind of where I keep the stories that I'm working on at the time. I think I'm gonna like maybe just use. I started using OneNote because I have an iPad that I also use, and OneNote is like is you can type text obviously, but it's better with the pen. It's better with the freaking Apple Pen than the Apple Notes is. Like, how does that even make sense? Like, I own Apple just because it's like, but somehow they are like the best at whatever the hell they do. But they still be making no sense. Like the fact that I can connect my iPhone from the same year as my MacBook Pro, and I cannot like connect them to each other. Like, that's freaking retarded. Like I'm sorry, like that's terrible UX. Apple just be retarded. And don't even get me started on Android and shit like that. um. Anyways, this is kind of like my daily, my not my daily, my per story. Like, this is like, out of all of these things, this would be this check everything in this checklist. This would be this one right here. Work on my story, write code, start looking at the story checklist. Start by looking at the story checklist. So this is the story checklist. This is kind of what this is kind of the features and stuff. I don't think this, let me see if I can find a better example. Give me 1 second. Yeah, this is a better example. But in here I kind of have like design a solution. Like, basically I read over the story, see everything that I need to do, then I kind of design a solution, and then once I design a solution, I write like a step by step like to-do list on how I'm gonna accomplish that. As you can see, that this is kind of like what I'm in the middle of working on. Yeah, so again, this is kind of like the story checklist, and this is pretty much totally different than my daily checklist, because this is just one little part of everything that I need to do during a single day. And again, for some reason, I thought I could just keep all this crap in my head, and even though it doesn't seem like that much, I'll just be forgetting. So now it is written down, and since I have this top part already here, I'm just gonna delete it. And there it is, as simple as that. It took way longer than he had to, because I'm live and stuff, but hey, at least I was able to go live. So now, those of you that are online, what about the keyboard? Is it too loud when I tap on the keyboard? Like this, or is it like, it doesn't matter? What do you guys think? But yeah, this is all I needed to do. And again, I just gonna use it as an excuse to go live, talk about the challenges of me as a developer dealing with the virus. I am aware that I'm lucky that these are my challenges, when there's other people that literally are losing their jobs and not being able to claim the unemployment or whatever. Yeah, so I do understand that, but these are the challenges I'm having. And it is almost 9:30, so I'm gonna ask a couple questions, and then and that's gonna be it. So, us coders are used to keyboard sound, so it doesn't bother us. All right, cool. And then Kelvin say it don't matter. Now, I know this is not actual code, but this is probably what, like, if I were to do a tutorial, this is probably the size the code is gonna be. Do you guys think that's a good size, or do you guys think that's too small and I should make like my screen resolution even lower so that it looks bigger? Um, right now, my the basically the screen that's being streamed. I have it set up. I have the resolution down at 1080p just so that the text would look bigger and stuff. Because if I had it at 4K, obviously, like, it would be like you would never be able to see it from a phone. Um, but yeah, I'm just curious. Like, is this a good, like? Can you guys read that fine? Or if I was doing like a coding tutorial, would you prefer if the code was a little bigger? Too small? All right, cool. See, that's what I want people to exactly, people to tell me how it's working. So now I know. Now I know. I can read it, but really have to look. Yeah, yeah. Are you looking on a computer or are you looking on a phone? Yeah, too small. The code would have to be bigger. Yeah, yeah. That's kind of what I thought. I wasn't thinking about it as I was working on it, but then as I saw it like on the other monitor where I'm looking at my actual stream, um, I do feel like it is a little small. You're right. You're right. Um, all right. I figure something out. 2019 13-inch MacBook Air. Yeah, yeah. Most developers work on laptops because you know you don't need super powerful desktop computers to make money. You use those when you want to waste money and waste time in gaming. Yeah, I need to work on that. When I told myself I record, I was also using a 13-inch MacBook, um, so I need to make sure it looks good on that. All right, let's see. I'll try to figure something out. Let me open VS Code just to try. So, so if I'm in VS Code, maybe I can get away with just like kind of doing that. Well, that's probably a little too much. Hey, I don't so so this is option one. This size, and so take a screenshot or whatever. But this is option one. Good size right there. You think this is good? All right. Yeah, I mean that does seem a lot bigger than. All right, cool. That's just what I do. Then I'll just like um just do like command plus until it's big enough. All right. Cool guys. Well, I guess I have a good idea for the text size, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. It was fun. All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Um, Maybe would you guys like me to be on the schedule or something like that? Um, I'll see. Um, it would be nice to get your input, but I'll see what I'll do. Um, I'm kind of invested into this live streaming thing, so again, I'm gonna keep finding excuses to use it. See you guys, and have a good day or good night.